Overnightscape Central. Yes, indeed, it's time again where we all gather, well, those of us who are interested in the topic, but the basic premise of the Overnightscape Central, if you're new to all this, is a topic was posited on last week's show at the end, and this week those who are interested send in stuff, and those who want to follow up can send in stuff over the course of the next week, and that gets played on the Pop Culture QD program, which is a daily thing that I host. We'll talk more about that whole implementation later. But the basic gist is this is a participation program that anybody can be part of. Thus far, as I start, we have 3 contributions. There could be more. There's still a little time left before the normal deadline, but it's Labor Day, and I figure if we could get a big rush, or we could just have these 3 either way. If I get done early, that's more leisure time. Oh yes, the appreciation and the joys of leisure time. But this week, the topic on the Overnightscape Central is movies, kind of focusing on things that you may have seen that we haven't, or vice versa. And like I say, we've got 3 hosts lined up and waiting. First, we are going to hear from Jeff Sink.
I think the season for big movies coming out is kind of waning. You know, it seems like there's a lot of movies that come out in the spring and then the summer. We've got these big blockbusters, and then late summer into fall is kind of the time for B movies and what are they called? I guess I would exploitation films, you know, like crappy movies that they know certain people will go see. Around Halloween, I'm guessing there will be a number of scary movies. I seem to recall a few years ago when there was a Friday the 13th. There was another movie by the same name, and I recall it being pretty forgettable. I don't really know what happened in it. I mean, somehow these sexy teens were drawn back to the camp at Crystal Lake, and Jason was still there, and the heroine had to fight him, and I don't know, something happened. It's pretty forgettable. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. And as far as movies that are coming out in the next couple of weeks, I mean, I although I don't really follow movies too closely anymore, I haven't really heard anything. So maybe now is a good time to sit down and watch some movies that are already out that other people can recommend. Seems like a good idea to me. And it's a funny question, because for me, I don't watch a ton of movies, and I used to watch more, but I don't know, I just got out of it. I mean, to a certain extent, it feels like there is a lot of repetition going on right now. There's this kind of I don't know what you would call it necessarily, but this fear of novelty and wanting to go back to the past. So you have all of these, like Spider-Man 4 and Shrek 7, and all these movies like that where it's like, or you've got remakes which are safe, and you like this classic when you were a kid, now watch it again. So it seems like there's not been a lot of good movies coming out. I saw Man of Steel over the 4th of July weekend, and it was alright, nothing really to write home about. I feel like the superhero genre has really run its course. I mean, we have superheroes trying to be human, trying to have human emotions. We have superheroes not trying to be human at all, and they've got these huge battles that the whole universe is at stake and all this stuff. And all right, that was fun for a while. And I feel like the whole superhero genre has kind of run its course. Much like I think the zombie genre has run its course. I don't know what the jump the shark, what would you say, the jump the shark moment for zombies or superhero movies. Maybe when they make a superhero movie of a zombie. Have they ever really done that? Probably, I don't know. But anyway, I'm pretty sick of those kinds of movies. I think I'm kind of bad at, like I was saying, I'm kind of bad at giving movie suggestions just because I don't see a lot of movies. Like I said, I used to see more. So I was thinking of some movies that I have seen, and some of these movies are good. They're well written or they're well shot. And some of these other ones are just kind of fun, and some of them are just stupid. So in no particular order, here are some of my selections of movies that you should see. The first one is a French film called Alphaville, and this is I think it was made in 1965. It's a science fiction, but it's not a really hard science fiction. And so the basic premise is there's this state that is a totalitarian state run by a computer named Alpha 60, and the center, the capital is Alphaville, and this guy goes to, I think the premise is he tells everybody he's there just as a reporter, but he's really there to take out Alpha 60. And his name is Lemmy Caution, which I think is a pretty badass name. So yes. There was a knock at the door if you couldn't hear that. And no, there's nothing. So I don't know if the person behind the door wants me to answer. Is it death? Is it like a vampire that can't walk in unless I open the door? Not really sure. Are you a vampire? There's no answer. Well, now I don't want to answer the door. I don't know what's going on. So there's potentially a ghost or a vampire at the door of my studio here, but I'm going to try to prevail, and if I get attacked, then I guess it'll be on record. So getting back to Alphaville, the film is really cool because it's surreal. And that's always fun. There's a scene where these people are being executed, and they're basically being shot, and then they're falling into like a public community swimming pool. So that's a really weird situation. And it's kind of a cool glimpse at Paris in the 1960s. And the design is more modern and stuff like that. So I figure this movie is old enough that I should be able to play a clip and be okay. So.
C'était ma première nuit à Alphaville. Il me semble déjà qu'une longue suite de siècles.
I was walking down the hallway.
Pourquoi les gens ont l'air tristes et sombres?
Vous posez trop de questions, Monsieur Jones.
Quelque chose ne tournait pas.
A woman with a number on her neck.
Galaxie.
Oh. Those are the people falling into the swimming pool.
Ils ont été condamnés. C'est le professeur Von Braun qui a organisé tout ça. Nous ne savons rien.
Vous menacez la sécurité d'Alphaville.
So that was the robot's voice.
Jamais les crises extérieures.
Ah, the guy's head just got run over.
Dès que je suis avec vous, j'ai peur.
Vous avez peur de quoi?
Les hommes de votre espèce n'existeront bientôt plus. Vous allez devenir quelque chose de pire que la mort. Vous allez devenir une légende, monsieur le Microche.
I guess I should say that this film, yeah, I think it's by, well, let me just double check who the director is. Yeah, Jean-Luc Godard. So, yeah, the robot's voice sounds like he's like, been a smoker his whole life. See if I can't remember any of my French that I learned in middle school. That's a pretty good movie. That's I mean, I guess you could say that's like an art house movie. It's fun though. It's pretty cool. And if you like detective stories and stuff, that's kind of a fun, different take on that. Let's see. There was another movie I was going to talk about, and I completely. Well, okay, so I'll talk about this one. I like Bollywood movies, and but the thing about Bollywood movies seems to be that a lot of them, at least the ones that I can get here in America, a lot of them are very fluffy. You know, it's kind of like the equivalent of a Disney movie or like a big budget Michael Bay film or something. You know, where they're over the top and wild and crazy, but they're not really, there's nothing really substantive about them. So, and I don't mean that to be a criticism of all Indian film. I'm sure there's plenty of movies by Indian filmmakers that are really good. I just haven't really found many that have much substance to them. So, if you're looking for kind of a funny movie, a Bollywood movie where there's lots of singing and dancing and stuff, might I suggest a movie called Doom 2. It has nothing to do with the video game, in case you're wondering. Which, it's funny, I used to play that as a kid, and it's incredibly violent, although not as violent as video games are now. I don't know, I don't think it really affected me. In any case, the whole premise of the film is that there's a guy who I think he's a policeman, and he's always put on, you know, special cases, and he's got a lovable but bumbling friend who helps him out with the cases, and he is set to find this robber, this thief, who's, you know, nobody can find, and he keeps stealing things. And so they go from a couple of interesting places in India, and then they actually go to let's see, do they go to Rio de Janeiro, or I think they go, yeah, I think they do. They go to Rio de Janeiro, and they're tracking him. So it's a spy, not spy, it's like a thief movie, cops and robbers type movie, and it's fun, and there's lots of dancing and singing. It's all in Hindi, and it's probably over 2 hours long, so it's one of those movies that it's kind of fun to put on, and if you're doing something else, you can kind of watch it as you are doing whatever. So you're putting together a puzzle, I don't know. maybe you would need a little bit more concentration to put a puzzle together while you're watching that. So that's the one that I would suggest. There was another Bollywood movie that I saw that was, oh yeah, and so this is kind of in the same vein. It's and I'm totally gonna butcher the name because it's like a Hindi name, but it's called Bunty or Bubbly, and it's such a silly name. Those are the names of the two characters, Bunty and Bubbly. I think Bubbly was the woman. So they come from this small town where they want to go to Mumbai and be famous, but in the meantime they kind of learn how to be grifters and schemers and scammers, and So they go through and they have all these disguises and they cheat people out of money and stuff. And it's like a funny movie that has no real. In the end, they learn a valuable lesson about cheating and lying to people, and they don't have to go to jail, but they have to become like the liaisons for the police office and stuff. But again, that's just a funny movie where they're in all these weird costumes and other things like that. Like I said, I think Bollywood movies are fun. It would be interesting to know. I mean, I can't imagine that they're really an accurate depiction of even middle class or upper middle class Indian life. The people in these movies they seem to have a lot of money, or they're in these situations where they don't have to work, and so kind of probably not representative. But that's another one. Yeah, I think it's Bunti and then Aurbubli. So it's kind of a silly name. There's another. So there are two movies. One of them is a cult classic, and it's called Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and it's a cult classic mostly because you have Bette Davis and Katharine Hepburn playing sisters who are kind of they're basically frenemies, and I guess in real life Bette Davis and Katharine Hepburn hated each other, and so to be in a movie together was kind of a weird thing. But it was in the late 60s. They were both past their prime, and so this is probably the best movie they could get. And it's kind of unflattering for either of them. So they play these two women who, back in the silent era, were big-time movie stars. And when they were both little girls, one of the girls was very successful and was on the road to famousness, to be famous, and the other one was kind of in the back, out of the spotlight. And it turns out later on when they become adults that the one woman who was in the back all the time ended up being the bigger star. And so there's this whole idea that the other sister got jealous and hit her with a car, and so the one sister is now in a wheelchair and the other one has to take care of her, and there's all this like animosity between the two of them, paranoia and stuff like that. So there are a couple of good scenes, like so the woman in the wheelchair, the one who used to be really famous, that's played by Katharine Hepburn. And so Hepburn has this, she's basically an invalid, and she has this parakeet or bird of some sort that she loves, and she always takes it out to play with it and whatnot. And Bette Davis's character hates her, and so somehow things escalate to the point where Bette Davis serves Katharine Hepburn, and when she opens up the what are those even called? I guess the dish cover, one of those silver dish covers that supposedly rich people have. When she opens that, she finds her dead bird there on like a pile of lettuce or something. So that's a shocking moment. The film culminates in you think that Bette Davis is going to kill Katharine Hepburn, but in the end they get rescued and all this stuff. It's a funny movie from the perspective that there's these two women who in real life hated each other. So there's one scene where Bette Davis is dragging Katharine Hepburn down the stairs, and so Katharine Hepburn wore a lot of weights under her clothes to make herself that much heavier, and I guess so. I believe Katharine Hepburn was on the board of Coca-Cola, and Betty Davis was on the board of Pepsi. And so they would, like, one day there'd be a Coke machine there, and then the next day it would be replaced by a Pepsi machine, and, you know, it would go back and forth. So they had this real rivalry going on. If you don't, in order, for my next recommendation, you really have to watch Whatever Happened to Baby Jane first, because there's a really good spoof of it that's just called Baby Jane, ? I think it's available on Netflix. I'm not really sure where else it's available. I'd have to look it up. But it's basically the film, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, but it's reenacted by drag queens, which is, it's pretty funny. And they do a good job of mimicking the way the women spoke and other things like that. There are a lot of comedic aspects that are added to that movie to make it funnier. It's not just like a strict retelling of it. It's, you know, they're clearly having fun, and there are silly jokes in there and stuff like that. But I laughed at that. I thought it was really funny. Although, like I said, it really wouldn't make sense if you had not seen Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It wouldn't, you know, have the same impact. I think the last film that I'm going to talk about is one that I actually saw yesterday, and it's another good classic film, and it's called The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, if those of you who haven't seen it. And it's good for a couple of reasons. First, because a lot of the special effects were done by Ray Harryhausen, and I believe he died recently, didn't he? Like within the last year or two. So there's a lot of like claymation monsters and things like that, and so that's really fun. The other reason to see it, if you so choose, is if you're a Doctor Who fan, the villain is played by Tom Baker, who of course played the Fourth Doctor in Doctor Who. And he has like, so even though it's you know, it's called the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and they're kind of supposed to be Middle Eastern. Sinbad is played by a man who's clearly white, and his arch enemy, I think who's named Kura. His arch enemy is Tom Baker, who is also white. So, kind of funny. It's a film that was made in the very early 70s. I don't know if Paramount Pictures made it. I think they did. It's kind of fun and campy. I had it on while I was doing other things. I eventually fell asleep at the end, so but you get to see I don't even know. It's like a centaur. It's like a Cyclops centaur that fights what looks to be some sort of a griffin. So you get to see that. You get to see, I think, the goddess Shiva dancing around and then getting 6 different swords and fighting with Sinbad. You also get to see little monsters and stuff like that. So it's good for that, from that perspective. It's, you know, even though the two main characters are supposed to be Middle Eastern, but they're really white, it's not really the most culturally insensitive part of the film. You have the god, like I was saying, you have the Hindu god Shiva, who is being controlled by the evil Kura, and the is a statue of this god, I should say, goddess, and so that it is compelled to fight against Sinbad. And then you've got these people dancing around in masks that look like almost like traditional Chinese or Japanese masks, or what is that, like the Chinese opera where they wear a lot of masks. Kind of looks like that. And then you've got a Buddha statue and and like, so it's all these religions and regions and cultures mixed together, and it kind of makes me wonder if did they just like look through one of those world dictionaries and encyclopedias and picked out a couple of things that looked cool, or did they really know anything? I mean, I don't know, it's hard to say. But I would say watch that for the claymation. I think other movies like Jason and the Argonauts and Clash of the Titans, the original movie had more special effects like that, the claymation, which it's cool. It's an art that, of course, they don't really use that much anymore in films. It's kind of sad, but at the same time, there are lots of good computer special effects. Yeah, so that's about it. I'm excited to hear maybe some other people's movies that they like, and I'll write some down and have a movie night. Tomorrow I'm going to go see The Man Who Knew Too Much by Alfred Hitchcock. I don't think I've seen that one before, so I hope it's a good one. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I will send things back to you, PQ.
Hey, very good selection. It's been years since I saw Alphaville, and it is probably time for me to see Alphaville again, so I will second. I second that emotion. I second that nomination to the Overnightscape Underground Interior Film Festival. Yes, that's right. We're each having our own individualized, patched-in, self-adapted for our own personal amusement film festival. And this is just a reconnoitering here. And again, if this topic catches your fancy, or you just missed the deadline, by all means, especially, this topic's always open. You want to talk about movies, you send me a segment, and it'll wind up on the Pop Culture QD, if nowhere else, because that's one of the things, especially lately, I've been kind of busy on. And speaking of which, it is time we do the week in review on the Overnightscape Underground, and it was a quiet week in comparison to quite a long time. A lot of that had to do with myself I took 4 days off. The first days at all that I've taken off since, February of this year. It just happened. I needed a break, and I took it, and no big deal. I'm already back, as you will see. On Tuesday, we started the Pop Culture QD week with a show ironically called Daily, with some Vic and Sade, little Laurel and Hardy, and then the Overnightscape, Frank Edward Nora, who we will hear from a little later on in this here very program. In fact, I think he's next. Stairway Grandfather was the title of the 1000th episode of the Overnightscape series. And then Carrie Michelle was back with the Carrie Show, Waking in Death, with great found music monologue and an inner sanctum mystery. Ooh. Frank was back with another Overnightscape interbaffle passage, and as always, digging around in Frank's head, and his look at the world is always pure bliss and good listening as well. And then I was back with a Pop Culture QD episode from yesterday called Back. Yep, after a mini vacation, I talked about things like Action Park, some movies, some Ed Sullivan, as usual. Wacky and wild stuff happening on the Pop Culture QD, and that was it. That was all there was. There was no morning commute this week. Everybody seemed to also feel the need to take a break. This was a long summer, and I hope everybody had a groovy Labor Day weekend, got back up to snuff. And so long as we're on the topic, Pop Culture QD as a series, theoretically, barring any weird brainstorms, will be ending on September 15th with a launching of another daily series that will be very much like the Pop Culture QD, except it will have a different name, and I'm sure there will be some just overall attitude adjustments, some changes, whatever. But every show I've done on the Overnightscape Underground is pretty much a variant of the series before and or after. I just like changing the names of things, what can I tell you? Anyhow, we are ready to get back to this week's show after we hear from Frank Edward Nora and his take on some movies. We will be telling you what next week's topic is, so you can participate in next week's Overnightscape Central and stuff like that there.
I wrote a bunch of movie reviews back in the mid-1990s. It's for my e-zine, Osoa Week, the weekly e-zine of Obliviana Super Occult Amusement. And I wrote a bunch of rock reviews, among other things in that location. I think back on that 1994, 1995. I actually made it into a website in 1995, that Osoa Week. It was almost like an early form of blogging, right? I was there in the beginning, at the dawn of the internet age. And, what happened? But we're going to check out those reviews and see about some movies from that time period and some earlier movies. It is Labor Day here, September 2nd or September 1st. What is today? Today is September 2nd, I believe. And I'm on my porch. It's really not very nice outside. It's very humid and oppressively humid out here. I'm smoking a meerschaum pipe. Meerschaum being a white stone usually found in Turkey. The country turkey, it's not like a pearl that you find in an oyster. It's not like you find these white stones in the bird turkeys. No, the country turkey. Smoking some very dry Rattray's Red Rappery. And as a beverage, we have here the Dogfish Head Chicory Stout. A rich, dark brew, smoothed out with a touch of roasted chicory and organic Mexican coffee. Goodness beneath the bone-white head. Yum yum, let's try this. I never tried this before. Not bad. Coffee-flavored beer. So yeah, this Obliviana thing was sort of my project before the Overnightscape, from 94 to 2003, and a lot of it was just in text. It wasn't really in audio, and I look back on it, and I don't know. It was like I was going after something that was an illusion. I was seeking something, questing for something that turned out to be illusory. But I think doing all that writing and everything kind of, I don't know, got me ready to do the Overnightscape eventually. As soon as I stopped doing that Obliviana thing, 2 months later, the Overnightscape started. One door closes, another door opens. Trying to maintain my pipe here. But looking back on that early writing from that e-zine 94 and 95, I don't know how much I like the writing style of my younger self, and it's a bit frustrating trying to remember back in that time period. Like, it's me, it was me, but it's so distant, So when I did reviews in this Osoa Week, I sought to make a large list of everything I ever reviewed, putting it in order from worst to best. I thought that was a kind of a good idea. So by the time I had 65 reviews, which is around the time, I think I kind of stopped writing a lot of reviews sometime in 95 or 96. I had this whole list from worst to best. So that's what we're going to take a look at. And great. See, I didn't realize I have my phone and my pipe and my recorder, so I only have two hands. Because yeah, this is gonna work. I think I'll just have to set the pipe down a bit. You know, should I put it in a candle? I mean, I don't know. It could melt the candle, and I get wax all over the meerschaum. It's quite. I'll just leave it there. Come back to it. See, we got this here. And this should give you, this is, this should give you some interesting, well, I can do it like this, okay. I'll hold the recorder. Ooh, you can hear the internet on the phone. There we go, that worked. So we're gonna be counting down, or counting up, from the worst movie to the best movie that I reviewed, 65 movies. These are usually pretty short reviews. Coming in at number 65, the worst movie on the list, Toys. And I'm just going to read these, and if I have any comments, I'll say it, but Toys. This thing is an abomination. I can't even call it a movie. Without a doubt, the worst thing I've ever seen on film. I felt corrupted and cheated after walking out of the theater. Stay away from this foul, dismally conceived calamity at all costs. No wonder Barry Levinson couldn't get this pile of crap made before he became a mega Hollywood type. By making it, he shits upon every member of the film-going public. Wow, I guess I really didn't like it, huh? Whatever happened to that guy? I know he made Rain Man. I don't know whatever happened to that guy, though. Barry Levinson, I don't know. Yeah, that movie was really bad. It was about, I think it was trying to be like some sort of symbolism for war, and Robin Williams was in it. I don't know. About a toy maker. It's horrible. Number 64, Batman Forever. Worse than the other two, if that's possible. A thoroughly horrible movie. Jim Carrey is far too restricted by the ill-defined Riddler role to cut loose. The plot is an unabashed mishmash of elements, hardly sewn together at all. To call the characters one-dimensional is charitable. Cinematic dead air. Reminded me of Toys, the worst movie ever made. Maybe this is the second worst. So remember, all these reviews were all in different publications. This is just the order, right? The order of the worst to best. Number 63, Thumbelina. One of the worst films I've ever seen, and the Animaniacs short at the beginning was horrific. They looked and sounded the same, but Wacko, Yakko, and Dot had utterly different, castrated personalities. I observed lots of terrifically bored, frightened youngsters in the theater during the film. Yeah, I don't know why I went to see Thumbelina. It's a horrible animated movie, but yeah, the thought of a sort of trying to take the Animaniacs and make them more palatable to the general public and taking away their personality. I don't remember that at all, but it sounds horrible. Number 62, The Flintstones. Folks seem to be dazzled by the sparse portion of special effects here, but for some reason, but really everything about this film sucks and is an insult to the original TV show. The Universal logo over Pangea was a bit amusing though. Batman Returns. Another Batman movie. My boredom and frustration were felt as physical pain as I endured this piece of cinematic garbage. I hope I never see it again in any format. If you're one of the few who haven't been taken in yet, save your dough. It is so funny considering all the recent hoopla about Ben Affleck being Batman. See, two of the worst movies are Batman movies here. Number 60, Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. Guess they didn't have much money left to make the movie after paying off the fucking superstar. What a lame film. No plot, no story, no cinema, no nothing, but a showcase for Jim Carrey's increasingly self-indulgent and unfunny shenanigans. A few funny scenes, but on the whole, piss poor. Don't worry, the movies will be getting better. This is the bottom of the list. Number 59, Clean Slate. This small, confused, pathetic movie about amnesia left me quite numb. Dana Carvey is capable of much more. Just puffing on my cigar here. This one's a bit longer. This is a longer review. The movie Tank Girl. I remember seeing this. It was at I don't know if they still have that many discount theaters. It was at one of those discount theaters out in the middle of nowhere. Why? How? Tank Girl is a good comic strip. What happened to make it such a horrendous film? I don't know, but this movie is remarkably bad. What's weird about it is that it has the look and feel of a bad 80s movie. Think Ice Pirates. The producers must have known they were building a disaster, because they decided to edit in a massive number of still frames from the comic strip, as well as animated segments. These are actually good. Unfortunately, though, they don't have anything to do with to save the Titanic here. They don't do anything to save the Titanic here. Lori Petty is confused and low energy in the title role. The bright spot in this mess is her girl buddy Jet, played by some British babe. Malcolm McDowell and Ice-T are wasted as villain and reluctant ally. Iggy Pop's pedophile cameo was okay though. Catch this movie on cable at 3 a.m. while you're semi-conscious and you might get something out of it. I barely remember seeing that movie. '57, Baby's Day Out. I was puzzled by this well-done film as to why they did it. While certainly watchable, it is ultimately a tiring exercise in plotting through a fictitious children's book. Lara Flynn Boyle as Baby Bink's mother is a real downer here. Also, do kids really enjoy seeing criminals get their testicles demolished in such a variety of ways? Yeah, back then, I guess like all the Home Alone movies and stuff, they had all these like slapstick criminals that are always getting hit in the balls. They probably still do it. It's an easy laugh. This is funny because this is a movie that I don't think I've heard anything about since I saw it. It's about a baby that sort of crawls out a window and I don't know. Lara Flynn Boyle. I don't really remember it. It was just stupid. It's one of those movies. It could almost be a pep. Like, did it even exist? Baby's Day Out. Here we go. Number 56, Casper. What a mess. It looks like this movie was rewritten about 1,000 times. It's a cinematic wasteland of Frankenstein's monster slapped together from spare parts. In short, it sucks. Technically, the ghost animation by the same folks who did Jurassic Park is groundbreaking. We're swerving ever closer to a time when human beings can be simulated on film via computer, and Casper is a big step. The girl, Christina Ricci maybe, is real good. Wasn't she in the Addams Family movies? Seems kind of typecast. Seeing former Python Eric Idle in such a pitiful role is depressing. He must be pretty happy though. Casper is a blockbuster. I guess this really is a kids movie. It's a shame because the best kids movies can also be enjoyed by adults. This is another movie I don't remember hearing much about since it came out. Casper. Sorry, I'm puffing on my pipe here. Keep it going. Number 55, Dracula. A dreadful interpretation of the Bram Stoker Thing. This film is an utter disaster. Saw a lot of bad movies back then, huh? Coppola's directing is beyond clumsy. His use of cinematic effects beyond inappropriate. Keanu Reeves' laughable fake English accent starts this fiasco off on the wrong foot, and it just goes downhill from there. A good movie to catch 20 minutes of on cable. Number 54, GoldenEye. Weak. Very weak. Worst Bond film ever. Pierce Brosnan is a pussy pretty boy. The whole thing looks low budget. Fuck it. It was a good video game though on the N64. I'm adding that part in. I don't think N64 was out yet when I wrote that. Number 53, Stargate. Bad, cliche, weak filmmaking here. Dull characters, slight plot, Raiders of the Lost Ark copying, and a totally one-dimensional villain cripple this movie, whose premise had promise. There are so many stupid things that happen, so many things begging for an explanation, which is never given. Bad. Hold on, let me get my pipe going here. Okay, I think I need a little booster to get a flame here. Alright, here we go. Had to get it going again. I'm not good at smoking pipes anymore. I've lost the ability. I haven't done it in a while. Number 52, Star Trek Generations. Well, what can I say? This movie sucks bad. The script is horrible, full-on inconsistencies and heavy-handed plot devices. Captain Kirk is in the movie for only a few pathetic minutes, and the whole thing is indistinguishable from a weak episode of Next Generation. I feel bad for all those Trekkies out there, or Trekkers as they prefer to be called. I can't imagine waiting on the edge of my seat so long for such a piece of shit. Don't worry, the movies will get better. 51, Waterworld, maybe not, wait a second. Waterworld, a total, and I do mean total fucking ripoff of Road Warrior. Not the worst film ever made, but nothing special, full of contradictions and things which beg for an explanation. The little girl looked just like the feral kid. Why spend 200, I'm assuming I meant 200 million, on such a derivative story? Haven't they figured out yet that this dynamic of copying a popular movie doesn't really work? I mean, look at all the lame Indiana Jones ripoffs that came out after Raiders, jeez. Could have used more sex and monsters, too. The two things that make a movie great, according to those British dudes, Wycliffe and Cheeves, the English guys at home. That's a little reference to my Anything But Monday show. This pipe's not going too well. Number 50, The Crow. Brandon Lee is a joke, really, compared with his father. Excuse me. But the fact that Brandon died while shooting this film makes it a little more interesting. The plot is so formula, however, the respectable atmospherics can't quite make it a good movie. Number 49, Time Cop. Too much fighting, not enough time travel. Before I saw this film, I couldn't think of a bad time travel movie. And while not terrible, this Van Damme flick is quite disappointing. As it turns out, there is at least one other bad time travel movie. The Star Trek ones, 4, 5, 6, 7, with whales. Number 48, The Client. Watchable, engaging, but not great. And with an anticlimactic ending. Doesn't quite deliver what it promises, but rather good overall. Has Tommy Lee Jones in it like every other movie. 47, French Kiss. I went to see it with my girlfriend, and while it's okay, it's basically a nothing movie. Kevin Kline is great and has much chemistry with Meg Ryan, but the whole thing is too formula, too predictable. No energy. Its quirks save it from becoming a total bore, though. The Canada angle is interesting, but really there's no reason to see this movie. There's just nothing there. Number 46, Sneakers. A mixed bag, lots of stars, much suspension of disbelief, plot collapse, but fresh pacing, not bad. I don't even know, what is that movie? Is Dan Aykroyd in that or something? I don't know. I'd have to look that one up. Number 45, Heat. Robert De Niro is good. Al Pacino is terrible, and Val Kilmer is dead air. This LA crime saga type thing is a ponderous cinematographically overblown, dull, 3-hour mess, with a few bright spots, but not enough to make it worthwhile. You can see what the director is trying to achieve, and he fails miserably. See The Usual Suspects instead. Has a very similar plotline, and unlike Heat, it is a great movie. Number 44, In the Mouth of Madness. I don't think I remember this one at all. Nightmarish, scary, and self-referential, this film has a similar atmosphere to another good John Carpenter horror film, Prince of Darkness. This movie wants to be one big mindfuck, and it succeeds. You leave the theater pretty creeped out. See, young Frankie had a very dirty mouth. I was constantly saying fucking shit in my reviews. What's up with that? This wasn't 90s after all. I was like a slack. It's like a big mindfuck. See, that's going to be a slacker to say. Clearly derived from the works of H.P. Lovecraft, this film follows an insurance investigator as he looks for a missing horror writer. The characters and their interaction is weak at points, but that's made up for in the eerie atmosphere evoked. There are a lot of cliche elements here, but they work in the overall context. But with its self-referential brain games, the film may be a one-trick pony, diminishing the value of repeated viewings. That is, once you get the gist of what's happening, it just doesn't pack the punch the first time through. As a creepy experience, In the Mouth of Madness excels, but as a film, it's just okay. Prince of Darkness is much better. Number 43, Backbeat. This movie is about the Beatles' early days in Germany. This movie about the Beatles' early days in Germany is interesting, but lacks the spark of vitality that could have made it great. The real Pete Best must love this sort of film. 42, Forrest Gump. Not all it's cracked out to be. This much too long and overly ambitious project is more of a circus than a movie. Awesome war scenes, cool digital effects, great music, and genuine humor shine in this otherwise shaky conglomeration of history, relationships, and the supposedly profound insights of a retarded fool. This is what happens when you try to cram everything under the sun into a film. I think my writing was actually pretty good back then. I had potential. But I just was writing for this little internet thing. I didn't ever try to do any real professional writing. Oh well. What do you want? There are other timelines to explore those things. This is this timeline. Number 41, Night on Earth. Disappointing Jim Jarmusch film about taxi rides done in 5 segments. Worth seeing if you're willing to wade through a mire of self-indulgent and boring junk to get to the few excellent parts. Number 40, Aladdin. Aladdin has everything going for it. Great story, great voices, fabulous animation, etc. But it utterly lacks the one thing it needs most, spirit. Underneath its lavish exterior, Aladdin is cold and distant. There doesn't seem to be any driving force or vision behind it. Today's Disney might be a money-making company, but as far as I'm concerned, it lost its heart and soul 26 long years ago, which is when Disney died. Then, in 1995, whatever. Not now. It's been a long time now. Number 39, The Mask. Very funny, approachable, tolerable use of computer graphics and starring the great Jim Carrey. This film is unfortunately marred by a plot and pacing breakdown about 2/3 of the way through. Also, the clean slate dog, sans eye patch, shows off his true talents here, including pissing. Number 38, Dumb and Dumber. An all-out, scatologically slapstick romp starring today's ultimate stooge, Jim Carrey. You could tell this is the Jim Carrey heyday in the mid-90s, right? And a refreshingly dim-witted Jeff Daniels. Expect the most immature, most Beavis and Butthead sort of humor. It made me laugh a lot, even though there's not much to it cinematically. For what it is, though, it's good. Number 37, Singles. Okay, so this is another of those Generation X movies, I guess, but it pales in comparison to the excellent Reality Bites. This movie is rather boring, with a lot of unlikable characters and not much going on. There's the thing where the characters are talking to the camera, which is done all right, but seems a little lame. The best part of this dull movie is Eddie Vedder. He plays the part of a drummer in Matt Dillon's band. Otherwise, there's not much to it. Number 36, Speed. This movie has some great elements, but it doesn't come together as a great film. Keanu Reeves is unconvincing as a cop, and Sandra Bullock is far too undeveloped a character. There is too much die-hard, cartoon-like action with nothing to back it up. I found it hard to buy a lot of what was happening. It looks like the script was rewritten hundreds of times. Dennis Hopper is kind of a pathetic villain, one with little character and questionable motivation. All in all, Speed tries to be Die Hard on wheels, but doesn't even come close. It's very judgmental. Young Frankie's very judgmental. As he should be. These are reviews. Number 35, Heavenly Creatures. This is one of those movies I heard a whole lot of good things about, only to be disappointed when I finally saw it. The story takes place in mid-50s New Zealand, where two teenage girls for a close relationship based around a fantasy milieu of their own design. The friendship turns to romance, much to their parents' chagrin. One girl is eventually to be sent to South Africa, so the other plots to kill her own mother. It's a true story, or so they say. The problem is that the two main characters are really unlikable, and their final act of murder is a reprehensible act. And you wind up just hating them. It's not clear why exactly they had to kill the mother. The fantasy realm is dreary and hackneyed, understandable since it's based on one girl's actual diary entries. The actress who plays Pauline does so wonderfully. The other one is alright too. Unfortunately, these performances don't make up for the film's lack of direction. Anyone hoping for a good dose of lesbian eroticism should look elsewhere. Sirens, for example. These two have no chemistry, and even their makeout scene is strangely devoid of any energy. So, not a terrible film, but nothing special. This is one true story that was hindered by being too accurate, In this case, teenage angst doesn't pay off well, it's just boring. See, I was referencing the Nirvana song. Teenage angst has paid off well, now I'm bored and old. Serve the servants? The Brady Bunch movie, number 34 here. Wow, we're coming right along. A very long review for this one, obviously, because the Brady Bunch means so much to me. Going on with this pipe. Hold on a second here. I have pipe problems. I'm not piping properly. What are these noises? All right, let's continue, shall we? The Brady Bunch movie. It's funny how the innocence of the Brady Bunch is so lampooned in this film. The Brady Bunch is at the apex of Gen X nostalgia culture. Most of us hold it dear in our hearts. But the cynical, nasty, and jaded attitude of today could do little else than make fun of the purity of the Brady Bunch that we all cherish. This, then, is what the movie is, a technically clever long-form SNL skit, a joke about all the little foibles of the Brady Bunch. I am a little uncomfortable with the way the film turns the Bradys into a bunch of verifiable freaks. It's the Brady Bunch circa 1971 or so, living in a realistic, gritty 1995 Los Angeles. The Bradys were a cool, hip family in their native early 70s, and that's part of their appeal, the innocence of the age. I guess Hollywood couldn't think of any better angle, but still, it's a shame. Even worse, various Brady characters are changed to make them even more freakish. Jan is reduced to a true paranoid schizophrenic, hearing voices in her head and the like. Mike is an inept architect whose every design is identical to his house. Alice is into leather. Don't get me wrong, the film is entertaining. All 6 kids have problems from various original episodes. Marcia has Oh My Nose and Davy Jones. Greg has Johnny Bravo. Jan has Marcia about a dozen times, and her glasses. Peter has his changing voice and bullies at school. Cindy has tattletaling and her lisp. Bobby has the safety monitor thing. The casting is good. All the actors do good impersonations of the originals. I guess this is what they were going for. Like I said, SNL, like impressions. Marcia and Peter have the greatest physical resemblance, Greg and Cindy the least. The best part of the movie is, like I said, its technical cleverness. It recreates the grainy film quality, sound, music, and spinning dissolves of the TV series, all done to perfection. Too bad the point of it is, look how lame these people are. There are some inexplicable subplots also, such as Marcia's lesbian friend, played by the wonderful Beekman's World girl. I actually looked this up. I had no idea what I was talking about. The wonderful Beekman's World. I remember Beekman's World vaguely was some sort of a science, like a 90s like update of like Mr. Wizard, like a science show. I looked it up, and I don't think this individual really did much else. I don't know. I sort of recognized her. Maybe she did. And the horny alcoholic neighbor's wife who lusts after the Brady men. As well, cameos are unbelievably sparse. Only the original Carol, Alice, Greg, and Peter, as far as I could see. All in all, the Brady Bunch movie is an interesting film with a lot going on. Sure to be a major hit of the 100 million plus variety. Too bad it had to turn out this way. All right, this pipe is done. Let me get some beer. Okay. Too bad it had to turn out this way. Wait, I lost my place. Hold on, I'm trying to get situated. What is this? Okay. Number 33. Let's keep going here. We'll get there. Number 33, Cool World. Ralph Bakshi's mix of live action and animation is a fantastic and refreshing film. An instant cult classic, highly recommended. I don't know if that film did very well. I think I saw it a couple years ago. I thought it was good, actually, again, when I saw it again. Number 32, Die Hard with a Vengeance. I came out of this film liking it, but I had this nagging feeling that there was something very wrong about it. Something about the cinematic undertone. I got the feeling that the director had a checklist of vehicles for Bruce Willis to have adventures on, with very heavy-handed segues and plot devices linking them. It's like this film was a person at the end of a hallway filled with flames. They put a blanket over their head and rush forward, damn the torpedoes to the exit. They do portray a realistic sense of New York, unlike so many other films. And the New York backdrop, as opposed to the building on one and the airport in two, is cool, but may account for this movie's main problem. New York is such a big and diverse place, you can't stay in one place for too long and develop an atmosphere. Samuel L. Jackson as Zeus, the funky sidekick, is excellent. The Pulp Fiction reference was also great. I have no idea what that is. I don't remember. But the plot contrivances which got Willis and Jackson together were totally contrived. Contrivances were contrived. Who would have guessed? The Die Hard series has always had a cartoon-like element, used well here also. But I don't think the plot and pacing deficiencies were deliberate. Rather, it seems that the film is constructed from elements sure to work, limited the risk of a bad movie, and also limiting the chance of a really good movie. What? All in all, worth seeing, but light in weight. Number 31, Trespass. This is an extremely fun and likable film, which doesn't set out to do too much, but delivers everything it promises. Two firemen get a treasure map and travel to an abandoned East St. Louis building, only to run into a band of drug dealers, whom they then battle for the rest of the film. Ice Cube and Ice-T give good performances, and the whole thing just basically works. Recommend it. See, these movies are getting better now. I kind of remember that movie, Trespass. It's a very obscure movie now. Number 30, Surviving the Game. A very cool little film with an impressive cast. Rutger Hauer and friends tricked homeless Ice-T. Ice-T again. This was the age of Jim Carrey and Ice-T in movies. Damn, I just lost my place again. I'm reading this on my phone. I emailed the list to myself. Into joining their hunting expedition, but the erstwhile rapper quickly discovers he is the prey. What? I use the word erstwhile? I usually don't use that word. Yeah, they bring Ice-T on a hunting trip, but then he's the one who's being hunted. Great. I don't really remember that at all. 29, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. This film is a horrible mess, but Gus Van Sant's potent directorial voice elevates this otherwise pathetic bit of cinema to great heights. The late River Phoenix's sister, Rain, has a delightful screen presence, as opposed to star Uma Thurman, who is less than dead wood. So whatever happened to Rain Phoenix? Is she still around? Number 28, Barcelona. A fun intellectual comedy done with a lot of directorial flair. This follow-up to Metropolitan is delicate, intricate filmmaking, not at all robust, but enjoyable nonetheless. Number 27, The Lion King. Far more mature, rich, and smart than any recent Disney animated feature. This is engaging cinema for all ages. They dealt with the issue of the lions eating other animals quite well also. Number 26, The Indian in the Cupboard. A kid's movie with a lot of deep psychological undertones. The actor Lightfoot plays Little Bear, a plastic toy Indian made real, albeit still tiny, by a magic cupboard. The story of the boy's relationship with Little Bear strikes some deep spiritual chords, as if it's symbolic of something deep in the collective subconscious. Lightfoot is superb, giving Little Bear role real substance. The guy that plays the cowboy is also great. But the kid, when he tries to have a look of awe on his face, he winds up looking stoned instead. Directed by Frank Oz, who is Miss Piggy and Yoda, this movie has some great special effects and even a cameo by Darth Vader. It's a gentle, nice little film on the surface, but don't be fooled, there's a lot going on here. Number 25, Natural Born Killers. I've always hated Oliver Stone, so you can imagine how upset I was when I really loved this film. It's rare that a filmmaker sets out to make a weird stylistic collage, ultra-violent social satire comedy and actually succeeds. But this tale of pop mass murderers, Mickey and Mallory, is entertaining, thrilling, funny, visually stimulating, superbly edited, and a must-see for violence lovers. Something of an art film, though, so be warned. I remember when we saw this movie at the very end, the audience was just like, people were stunned, and they weren't even, no one was moving. And one guy in the audience said something like, "Wow, you all are scared to get up. We're going to kill each other." Really a weird moment. Of course, today, in today's world, the movie would be yawned at. But back then, the violence level was quite shocking. Number 24, Quick Change. This bank robbery gone wrong comedy from a few years ago didn't make a big impression, but I really like it. Great cast: Bill Murray, Randy Quaid, Jason Robards, and Gina Davis. Cinematically brisk and confident, this film deserves more than it got. What a light, entertaining comedy thriller is supposed to be like. A not-too-distant relative is the superb Midnight Run. Number 23, To Die For. Gee, Nicole Kidman is a pretty goddamn good actress. She kicks ass as a woman obsessed with becoming a TV news reporter in a story based on the Pamela Smart case. You know, the teacher fucks student, gets him to kill her husband, and they all get caught. What? I only barely remember that. Another one of those Phoenix kids shows up here. I forget his name, but it must have been something related to nature and or mythology, such as river or rain. He's all right, but he doesn't give his character much depth. Great movie if you're intelligent. It's a great movie if you're intelligent. 22, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. A dark-edged teen comedy, quirkier than it seems, and featuring the bare breasts of Phoebe Cates and Jennifer Jason Leigh. Quite good. Number 21, Toy Story. First feature films done with 100% computer animation about toys that come to life. A great movie, well written and inventive. Lots of fun characters and situations. But looming over the whole thing is the terrible realization that it's only a matter of time before human actors can be perfectly simulated through these techniques. Depressing thought, eh? I guess young Frankie didn't hear of the Uncanny Valley, did he? Number 20, Don Juan DeMarco. A very pleasant surprise. I went to a $2 theater with Carrie and Peter, not expecting much, but the movie turned out to be quite good. Even now, it's still sinking in. Excellent script, Lynchian mindfuck elements, good. Johnny Depp, the star, is a fantastic actor. You've got to give him credit. Before Ed Wood, I thought he was a no-talent pretty boy, but he's good. Marlon Brando brings a lot of Marlon Brando-ness to the film, but it works, almost as if they had him in mind when writing it. Don Juan DeMarco merges fantasy, reality, and a sweet sexuality to form a very complex cinematic tapestry. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. You need a refined cinematic palette to really appreciate it. Am I elitist or what? Yes, you are, young Frankie. You are elitist. Anyway, the story centers... I like how I'm talking to myself in the past. That's good. Anyway, the story centers around this 21-year-old who thinks he's Don Juan and his relationship with his psychiatrist, Marlon Brando, of course. With brilliant pace changes, surprises, and a wonderful texture, this is one sleeper I highly recommend. Was it a sleeper? I think so. Heck, I'm not a Hollywood insider, not by a long shot. So check it out. I imagine it'll be on video in a few months. Or go to the guy on the corner in New York and get a copy, some low-light videotape off the screen. There you go. That was back in those days before the internet. You had to go on the street corner to buy bootleg movies. 19. Pocahontas. Pocahontas is hot, easily the sexiest Disney animated babe ever. I really like this movie. It blows Lion King away, and Lion King was pretty good. The animation is quantum leaps beyond Lion King, too, with unbelievably beautiful and detailed work. The integration of computer-generated 3D objects is done with great aplomb here. Did I really use the word aplomb? I don't really generally use that word. I used to. Cinematically, Pocahontas weaves a wonderful web because at its heart, it's about a wonderful free spirit, Pocahontas. She leaps off cliffs, canoes down waterfalls, flirts with the white man, talks to trees, and is loved by the animals and all that. The theme of freedom is reinforced at the end, where the warrior she was to wed, Kokuoon, I have no idea how you spell that, is dead. And her other love interest, Englishman John Smith, is wounded and departs on his way home. The Indian princess is given a choice to accompany Smith, but she declines. I made it here is her excuse. So she ends the film still free, virginal, pure, unshackled. I read about the original story, and this is far from it. She actually wound up marrying some other English dude and spent a lot of time in jolly old England, where she died. Disney has created an erotic, thrilling, strong character in Pocahontas. I really like how Disney is getting more mature with their animated features. First Lion King and now this. I have a feeling, though, that this is the apex of Disney feature animation. I think I was probably correct in that assumption. Number 18. See, we're getting to the better movies now. Have you seen these movies? Maybe these are the movies maybe you should see. The Player, an awe-inspiringly great film about a Hollywood producer. The film's brilliance took me totally by surprise, a must-see. I think it was like Tim Robbins. I got to see that. I would actually like to see that again, the player. Number 17, True Lies. That's a good one. Schwarzenegger recovers powerfully from last year's good but horribly received The Last Action Hero with this awesome, eminently enjoyable comedy, action thriller with a heck of a lot going for it. Yeah, I saw that just the other day, a bit of it on cable. Number 16, Showgirls. I really liked it because I could see the humor in it, which I believe was intentional. Thing is, the humor is done in such a deadpan manner that the whole thing could easily be perceived as nothing but garbage. Lots of girl nudity adds to the fun too, of course. A lot of stereotypes are explored here, along with a much bittersweet commentary. Its problem is that it's an underground art film masquerading as a run-of-the-mill Hollywood nothing fest. I like that, Hollywood nothing fest. That's a very 90s thing to say. Frankie. Young Frankie. My prediction, the film will resurface sometime in the 21st century and become a massive cult favorite. Well, it is the 21st century now, Frank, and I don't know. I think some people still like that movie. I don't know. And number 15 is an older film, Faster Pussycat Kill Kill from 1965. A movie which I've always heard about but never saw until a few days ago. It's been re-released in certain theaters. Unlucky for me, one of them was a few blocks from where I work. That was Film Forum, by the way. On Houston Street, I believe. No? Yeah? Somewhere around there. This is a tale of three go-go girls and their desert racing, killing, kidnapping, and psychotic hijinks. Sex, violence, and awesome corniness. It really is a great film on a lot of levels. Extremely well directed by Russ Meyer. You're not going to find it at Blockbuster, but I'm pretty sure it's out on video. A must-see. I don't really remember it. That was many years ago. This is like almost 20 years ago, all these reviews, you know? This is like 20 years in my past. Oh, for God's sakes, we're getting there. These are the best movies now, the best of the best. Number 14, Ed Wood. Opens October 7th, 1994. What, did I see like a preview of it or something? Maybe I saw like a sneak preview. A wonderful multi-dimensional comedy by the usually bad Tim Burton. This film succeeds at many levels. It's the story of cross-dressing worst director of all time, Edward D. Wood Jr., Johnny Depp, and his travails making the worst films ever, especially Glen or Glenda, Bride of the Monster, and the ubiquitous Plan 9 from Outer Space. The usually bad Depp delivers a delightful performance, but the real core of this film is Martin Landau's uncanny portrayal of Bela Lugosi. Shot entirely in black and white, this is one good movie by a usually bad director and about a really not bad director. This is one good movie by a usually bad director about a really not bad director. Number 13, Disclosure. Much more than a reverse sexual harassment film, this Michael Jurassic Park Crichton film is top-notch. Funny, engaging, smart, and beautifully filmed from beginning to end. Don't judge this book by its cover. I know Michael Douglas and Demi Moore make this movie look like it could be crap, but it's one of the best films of the year and a must-see. And it even has a cool virtual reality segment. Now, I watched this movie about a year or two ago. I rewatched it. And I liked it, but it's very dated. It feels so 90s, it hurts. In a good way, of course. See, I'm getting back to my film review style. It hurts, but in a good way. It's so 90s, it hurts. In a good way. See, I could be a film writer. Yeah, man, I could be the next Siskel and Ebert, for God's sakes. Yeah. Well, I'm talking to myself right now. Well, they were talking to each other. Alright. I think I need some more beer. Hold on a second. Number 12, Pulp Fiction. This movie really worried me about halfway through, but it managed to come together at the end. I liked the non-linear storytelling, but Quentin Tarantino is a shitty director. Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson are superb. John Travolta has a good presence. Harvey Keitel is a real downer as usual. And Uma Thurman, an empty void of a performer, can't act at all. Good writing, but a lot of indulgences. Where'd that guy get a box of Fruit Brute in this day and age? Hey, young Frankie, do you know in 2013 Fruit Brute's gonna get re-released? See, if I could just tell him all these things that were gonna happen, the Fruit Brute's finally coming out again in 2013. I mean, obviously, this movie, I think I watched it a few more times and got on board. It's a great movie, Pulp Fiction, come on. Number 11, Siren. So wonderfully naked, Elle Macpherson, along with 4 other beauties, makes this excellent film exquisite. I don't know, Sirens. It's about these, like, missionary guy that goes out into the woods in New Zealand or something, and his wife starts to, like, be sexually attracted to the women or something. I don't know. I barely remember. I just remember Elle Macpherson was naked. Whatever happened to Elle Macpherson? Is she even still around? And here we go, the top 10 movies. Okay, these are the best of best. Number 10, Mallrats. Follow up to Clerks. Some might say it's Kevin Smith's sophomore effort, but I don't like that word in that context. Anyway, listen to this air traffic around here. Anyway, this movie bombed, even though it's totally awesome. Sure to become a cult classic, though. Filmed at the Eden Prairie Mall in Minnesota instead of the Woodbridge Center in New Jersey, the mall I'm pretty sure the director had in mind. Shannon Doherty fits into the madness very well, and newcomer Jason Lee is perfect in the role of Brody. Too bad this movie disappeared, but it was marketed as some stupid 80s Valley Girl throwback or something, as opposed to the sophisticated, smart film that it really is. Definitely give this movie a chance on video. I saw it twice, and it definitely stands up as a cult film you can watch over and over again. At the end of the credits, it says that Jay and Silent Bob will return in Chasing Amy. I hope so. Well, yes. Chasing Amy did come out. I don't know if it was that good. Kevin Smith went on to do a lot of podcasts and all these shows where he just talks and takes questions from the audience. And he made a few other movies. Whatever. Number 9, Quintet. 1979. Look at this. The only sci-fi movie ever for both director Robert Altman and star Paul Newman. It takes place during the next ice age, where the remnants of humanity are slowly fading away. Filmed in a decrepit exhibit hall from the 1967 Montreal Expo, the dying city is a wonderful and original location. I like this movie, but I think most people would find it boring and pointless. I watched it with my parents. They lasted maybe a half hour before bailing out. If you can get into the groove of the thing, however, you'll find a very full atmosphere and lasting impression. Newman seems lost throughout the picture, but this adds to the film's unique cinematic experience. If you think you can handle it, check it out. But be sure to give it a chance. It takes an awful long time for any sort of plot to develop, but it does eventually appear. Yeah, this is a very interesting movie, very obscure, hard to find. Quintet, Robert Altman and Paul Newman. Really weird movie, and again, you've got to give it a chance. It's something that can just sort of sink in, but it's worth seeing. Number 8, The Eiger Sanction. What did I hear about that? I heard something about that recently. The Eiger Sanction. I forgot what I heard about it. Mid-70s spy-type intrigue thriller, directed by and starring Clint Eastwood. Certainly a classic, full of quotable lines and wonderful evil characters such as the homo Miles Mello and the Indian girl George. What? That's not very politically correct, Frankie, to use that word. Well, it was the 90s. I don't know. Wow. See, I was very quick to use words like that. Don't judge me. Just judge the younger version of me. Brings to mind the atmosphere of the best Bond films, but much grittier. See it, damn it. Yeah, that is a very good movie, The Eiger Sanction. Number 7, Gone with the Wind. Until today, I wasn't sure if I'd ever seen this classic, but after spending nearly 5 hours watching it on TBS, I realized that I had never seen it before. Anyway, it's a really good film with some very complex characters. It was thrilling to discover that this whole "I'll crack your skull like a walnut" was started here. I thought it was strange it grew. There's a lot going on beneath the surface. And hey, Vivian Lee was hot. Mammy was also very cool. Do rent it if you haven't seen it. You'll be pleasantly surprised. I don't think I've ever seen it again. I think it was the only time I saw Gone with the Wind. Number 6, Clerks. It is a wonderful directorial voice that sings the delicate cinematic song of Clerks. That is, there's a very gentle and pure undertow beneath the raw surface of the film. Made for $27,000 by New Jersey guys and brought by a major studio. This is a truly great film. It strikes so many chords, creates an atmosphere so disarming, that it is truly an amazing experience. No wonder it won so many awards. See it. Number 5, Logan's Run. My memories of this one were really screwed up by the alternate storyline in the 70s series. Really cool 70s sci-fi atmosphere, lots of ambiguity, a fine film. And in fact, I just watched Logan's Run a few weeks ago, and I'm now in the middle of watching the TV series. It is a very good movie, I have to say. I would definitely suggest it. Very weird, very good, and it has those like circular hologram things. That whatever happened to those? Yeah, circular animated holograms. That was like the pinnacle of technology in the mid '70s. We're almost there. Number 4, Joysticks. Awesome teen sexploit video game movie. We got the fatso, the nerd, the cool guy, the clumsy villains, and babes. We got plenty of babes. The 2 big video game contests use Satan's Hollow and Super Pac-Man, venerable classics. What are these noises? What are they, like those cicadas or something in the trees? Very summery noises out here. They also get the mayor of the town addicted to gore. Well done and very funny. This movie kicks ass. Yeah, it's one of those 80s teen exploitation films, but very good. Number 3 is The Usual Suspects. Back when the trouble started with my now ex-girlfriend, Carrie, we were at her brother's wedding at Headquarters Plaza in Morristown. I was fuming over not wanting me to talk to her grandmother's boyfriend about computers. Luckily, there was a movie theater in the mall adjoining the hotel, so I went there to cool off, choosing The Usual Suspects even though I knew almost nothing about it. Yeah, that's quite a memorable episode of my life. I go to this it was the night before the wedding, and I guess every time I got together with this guy John, who was her grandmother's boyfriend, we would just talk about computers, and they didn't want us to talk about computers because we were like ignoring everyone else. So a friend of the family was like jabbing me in the shin with her pointy boots. I remember that clearly, so I got all pissed and I went off to see if to watch a movie. And that movie was Usual Suspects. I can find my place here. I knew nothing about it. I just knew the title. I tell you, this is a great movie to see without any foreknowledge. At the end, I was confused and fascinated, so I went to see it again the next week. Anyway, it's a Brazil-like descent into the depths of fantasy and reality. It involves 5 criminals who are recruited by the mysterious Kaiser Soze for a crazy mission, full of quotable lines and memorable performances. This is a film that keeps on getting better every time you see it. The number 2 best movie reviewed is Twin Peaks: Fire Walk With Me. Recently, I've forsaken all other films so that I can see Twin Peaks over and over again. So far, I've seen it 3 times, and I've enjoyed it more and more every time. Admittedly, I was a big fan of the TV series, and this made the movie all the more interesting to me. But Fire Walk With Me goes far beyond the TV show. Basically, it depicts Laura Palmer's last week, in which she is tormented by the evil entity Bob. Lots of cool backwards-talking Black Lodge scenes, and Badalamenti's nightmarish music make this a very powerful, scary film. Lynch's direction is dead on, and Cheryl Lee's portrayal of Laura Palmer is phenomenal. In short, this film rules. I remember this is one of the few films that, after seeing it, I had trouble going to sleep at night. I was so scared of the Black Lodge. I'm with Agent Cooper in the Black Lodge. People don't seem to like this movie. We're still waiting for the director's cut, by the way, in 2013. It may come eventually. And the number 1 best movie I reviewed is Repo Man. The best movie ever made by far. I've seen it hundreds of times. Literally, I just got back into it big time. I got into it originally around 10 years ago. But man, what a great film. So many classic lines. Fuck you, queer, ordinary fucking people. I hate them. Laugh away, fuckface. The more you drive, the less intelligent you are. Please be quiet in the stairwell. Goddamn dipshit, Rodriguez, gypsy, dildo, punks. I'll get your ass. Far better than its nearest neighbor, Pulp Fiction. Emilio Estevez and Harry Dean Stanton shine. It's amazing, so fucking amazing. How can a movie be this good? I don't fucking know. Just see it for yourself.
Wow, a massive and amazing list of films. Incredible and encyclopedic. Interesting taste as well. That was an era where, I don't know, I was hardly watching movies, so a lot of those, some I've seen, the bulk I haven't. There's a few there that sound like I might actually, you know me, if it's in color and has like Dolby stereo, there's probably something wrong with it, is my usual assumption, but I'm really not that bad. I'm just kind of old and stuck in my black and white lo-fi ways. And speaking of lo-fi and black and white and things like that there, this is the point in the show where I tell you what next week's topic is and how you can participate. And how it works is next week's topic is history. And it is personal, world, national, real or imagined history is the topic of next week's episode of the Overnightscape Central. And to participate, you must get me a submission by September 9th, 2013, if you want to be on the actual show. If it gets in later, we will use it. If you send in something and I'm still alive years from now to that same address, I am pretty sure I will make sure it gets put to good use. In any case, the topic, one more time, history, and the email address is kpqr.torc@gmail.com. If you don't have a microphone, you're mic shy, you don't want to talk, type something up and send it and I'll read it. Send it to kpqr.torc@gmail.com. And that's how it goes. And if you keep in mind that September 15th, the new season here at the Nest. So there will be the 16th, which is 2 weeks, a special, extra special episode of the Overnightscape Central that I'm, much like the title of my forthcoming series, it's still, it's something very special that I haven't yet figured out. And continuing with this week's Overnightscape Central and movies, we haven't heard from Doc Sleaze in a while, and I am happy to say he is back with good stuff, I am certain. Let's sit back and listen together.
Earlier this year, a Spanish film director called Jesus Franco, often more commonly known simply as Jess Franco, he directed under several other names as well, basically died earlier this year. Now you may or may not have heard of Jesus or Jess Franco. You may or may not have seen any of his films. He never directed a Hollywood blockbuster. He never directed a film that would even got close to winning an Oscar, let alone being nominated, winning any other kind of award. Jesus Franco belonged to the world of exploitation films and low-budget horror films. In fact, he crossed all manner of genres with his films. But he is best known for his, mainly for his horror output and for his erotic thrillers, that kind of film. His canon, if one can call it that, extends into at least 3 figures, as well as the films he directed. Most are not terribly distinguished. And although he started off working in Spain, he had an international career. He directed films all over the world for various producers and tin pot production companies. Most notably, he directed quite a few in the late 60s and early 70s, possibly his most prolific period. He worked for the notorious exploitation film producer Harry Alan Towers. And to be fair, films he did for Towers tended to be a bit better financed, and they tended to look a bit slicker than a lot of his other films. Towers himself was a fascinating, colourful character. He was, I believe, he was nominally British. He started off producing radio series, and, a syndicated radio series, some of which you can find on archive.org. They often used to be based around old Scotland Yard cases, at least one that was, I believe, introduced by Orson Welles. Towers, as I say, was a fascinating character. he produced films in various countries, in various continents, mainly because he was constantly on the run for authorities in different countries, mainly because of allegations of financial irregularities and fraud. I seem to recall at least once with some allegation he was involved in some kind of call girl ring. He was a fascinating character. He died a few years ago. He also used to write screenplays for his own films under the name Peter Welbeck. Welbeck, incidentally, the name of the street where he used to live in London, Welbeck Street. I mean, Towers himself, he could probably devote an entire edition of Pop Culture QD to him. He's such a fascinating character. But it's Franco, his employee, really. I'm more interested in here. He's going to be focused what I'm talking about here. As I say, Franco wasn't a great director. The reason Towers employed him was because he was cheap. And he was able to bring films in under budget and ahead of schedule. So much so that sometimes, because typically on a Harry Alan Towers production, the crew and cast would actually be contracted for a specific period of time. So they used to shoot these films to schedule, and that'd be contracted like for a 3-week shoot. So if they finished in 2 weeks, what they do is often concoct a script and shoot a whole nother film in that additional week. Perhaps the best known films that Franco directed for Towers were the last two of the Fu Manchu series with Christopher Lee. Everyone remembers the first three, which actually had quite good budgets. They were shot in Ireland, Hong Kong, and the UK. The last two were shot in what they call Blood of Fu Manchu, sometimes known as Kiss or Kill. Whichever title you see it under, it's awful. And that was shot mainly in Brazil. And Castle of Fu Manchu, which was shot mainly in Turkey. And so they're probably the best distributed of all the Franco films, thanks to Harry Alan Towers. Towers himself didn't actually think much of Franco, apart from the fact that obviously he was able to produce these films very cheaply for him. One of Towers' main complaints about Franco, and I think it's valid, was the overused zoom lens. He had a penchant for zooming in on things which just made you feel ill when you watched the film. As I say, not a great director. I mean, he has the distinction, Jess Franco, despite making exploitation films, of having two of his films were films that, frankly, I found next to impossible to sit through. I remember watching, I can't remember which type, because they all have multiple titles, these films. Yeah, according to where you happen to see them. I think I saw it under the title of The Nude Vampire, but it's actually originally called Bare-Breasted Countess. Now, if anyone had ever told me that a film which much of its footage involves an attractive lady naked riding around in the bed would cause me to fast forward through these things because they're so tedious, I wouldn't have believed you. But Jess Franco achieved that, I think. It's a tedious film, nothing happens. There just seems to be acres of this footage of her rolling around on this bed and doing, clutching the bolster in the middle of the bed in a provocative fashion, where nothing actually happens. And also, another one of his films caused me to switch off after 20 minutes was Vampiros Lesbos, because it's just all talk, and after 20 minutes there's no Vampiros, let alone any Lesbos. But to be fair to him, some of his films have a certain quality. He did a couple of pictures after his association with Towers ended. That obviously they are possibly homages to the old Universal monster pictures. One was called Dracula, Prisoner of Frankenstein, also known simply as Dracula vs. Frankenstein, according to where you saw it. And the other one's called The Erotic Experiences of Frankenstein. These two films are fascinating because I've always sworn that if you didn't know that Jess Franco directed them, you might be inclined to believe they're lost surrealist classics. In terms of narrative, they make no sense whatsoever. I mean, one critic described how he once had fallen asleep on the sofa and woken up with the television on, woken up to find himself in the middle of Dracula, Prisoner of Frankenstein. And he said it was like having an out-of-body experience. And I appreciate what he means. It throws everything into the mix, you know. Dr. Baron Frankenstein himself, who captures and hypnotizes Dracula to do nefarious things for some reason, and he revives the monster, and to kidnap women for some reason I can't remember, and then there's this werewolf turn, there's some gypsies, and none of it makes sense. You're left in it all the way through. It's like, sorry, who is that? Characters just wander in, and you think, sorry, who is this? What are they doing? What is the purpose of the plot? Where does that werewolf come from? Why is he fighting Frankenstein's monster? But in a curious way, quite entertaining. The erotic experiences of Frankenstein, highly misleading title. Frankenstein himself, played as he was in the other film by Dennis Price. And we'll hear more of Dennis Price shortly. Is killed in the first 5 minutes, and it's actually his monster that has some experiences that I suppose you could describe as erotic. There's different monster than you saw in the previous film. This time he's a bodybuilder sprayed silver for some reason, and it all has something to do with a local magician or some sorcerer called Cagliostro wanting to make the monster with his daughter or something to produce some master race or something, and it's the whole thing is completely surreal. It makes no sense. Now, you're probably wondering what the hell am I doing talking about Jess Franco if he's that bad a director? Surely he can't have made any films I'd possibly recommend anyone watch. However, even the worst of directors can sometimes, especially if they're as prolific as Franco, the law of averages says somewhere all the elements will come together for them. Cast, script, locations, circumstances to produce a minor classic, a minor masterpiece. And so it is with Franco. In 1969, he directed a film for Harry Owen Towers entitled Venus and Furs. It was released in 1970. Venus and Furs is the closest thing to a masterpiece Franco ever made, because finally he found a film, a script, a project for which his directorial style made sense. Again, it's released under various titles. So, I mean, you may have seen it, you may have encountered it, but not under that title. Sometimes it's called Black Angel, sometimes it's called Proximus. But it's best known as Venus and Furs. A misleading title, actually, because actually it really doesn't have anything to do with the famous novel by Leopold de von Sacher-Masoch, from whose name, of course, we get the term masochism, because the novel Venus and Furs is really an account of a man who finds he can only get, not necessarily even sexual gratification of any kind, from being humiliated by his wife. It doesn't have to be some kind of sexual or physical humiliation. It's the fact that she humiliates him by cuckolding him. And he finds this perversely gratifying. The reason this film was titled Venus and Furs was actually to cash in on the fact there was another Italian-made film called Venus and Furs, released in '69, which followed the novel more closely, or that updated it to modern times. I've seen that film as well. It's fascinating. It's one of those Italian exploitation movies, which basically is smut pretending to be art. It's quite entertaining, very nicely shot, but it's smut, pure and simple. But the Franco film, getting back to that, they changed the names of the main characters in it from the original script to match the name of the characters in the Masoch novel. But beyond that, is really a tale of supernatural revenge. Again, it has a contemporary setting. It has a very haunting opening. It stars James Darren. Yes, James Darren, Time Tunnel fame. He is a jazz trumpeter, as the film opens, in Turkey, who, whilst walking along the beach, finds the body of this beautiful naked woman washed up. And he then has a flashback where he thinks he recalls seeing her at this party he'd attended, being whipped and sexually humiliated in some kind of sex game by these three dubious characters. This female sadist, this wealthy pervert played by the aforementioned Dennis Price, and kinky Klaus Kinski, who was another fixture in Jess Franco films. Anyway, he decides to flee in fear of what's going on. He thinks he's witnessed perhaps a murder and these people might go in. So he flees to Brazil, to Rio, where he gets work playing in a jazz band. And we get lots of nice location shots as we did in Turkey. And then he encounters, he finds that two of the people he saw apparently abusing the girl before she died are there. Dennis Price and the woman are there in Rio as well. And then who should turn up but a girl who is the spitting image, inevitably, of the murdered girl, played by Maria Rome. Lovely, beautiful girl, actress Maria Rome. And it's not clear, is she a ghost? Is she some kind of avenging spirit? Is she a reincarnation? Is she just someone who looks like her and is being possessed? But we don't know. He doesn't know. He eventually starts, because she's a very solid physical ghost, because he starts a physical relationship with her, and then of course she eventually takes revenge on these two characters who are there, and they're forced to flee back to Turkey, and where she eventually tracks down. He tries to sort of start some normal life, and finds the police are after her, start questioning him about these murders and this woman and her apparent death. And she catches up with Klaus Kinski and takes her vengeance on him. Anyway, he then discovers the grave with the name of this girl on it. And eventually it all culminates in this final sequence back on the beach, and you think it's going to repeat the opening scene, but it doesn't quite. And it leaves us, he finds another body on the beach washed up, but this time, I won't give it away because she wants to do it, but it leaves us with a conclusion that is both baffling and enlightening, depending on how you look at it. Either explains nothing, or it explains everything, depending upon how you choose to view the film. Now, my synopsis there is a very bare synopsis. It doesn't really do justice of why I think this is a film you should watch, or why I think it's Franco's best film. It's just the whole atmosphere of the film. And it's pertinent to note that Franco, before he was a film director, was a jazz musician. In fact, he was a jazz trumpeter. And the film is rather like a jazz competition. It's very fragmented and plays on themes which are repeated and explored. And it's so beautifully shot. The locations, I mean, I do have a suspicion actually that it was shot in between other Harry Allen Towers productions, because notably, as I said, it's shot in the same part. It's shot in Brazil, part in Turkey. Of course, the locations of those two Fu Manchu films he was shooting about at the same time. Although I've never been able to, I've looked into it, I've never been able to get a sort of clear answer on that. But it is fascinating, is the fact he manages to conjure, it's very difficult to fit this dream-like atmosphere. It has the logic of a dream, and it flows like a dream. You know, nothing really makes sense, but whilst it's like in a dream you know on one level you're dreaming this doesn't make sense, but on another level it makes perfect sense, and you accept all the absurdities. And so it is with Venus and Furs, strangely. It's very difficult to explain. But as I say, it's fragmented nature and it's playing on themes and so on. I think it does go back, it matches perfectly the script and structure his directorial style. It doesn't need to make pure narrative sense, and it's pointless trying to view it that way. You just have to go with the flow as if it's a dream. If you accept that, then the ending does make a certain degree of sense. If you try and view it logically, it doesn't, trust me. And also another thing, apart from it has some very nice location photography, excellent location photography. It has a real atmosphere that catches that end of the 60s atmosphere, this end of an era then. It has a terrific musical score, jazz-orientated score, partly composed by Manfred Mann. As I say, at the end of the day, it's unlike anything else that Jess Franco ever directed, before or after. Because trust me, the film he did after that, one of the films later he did after that, was a truly dreadful version of Dracula, with Christopher Lee. They persuaded Christopher Lee to do it on the basis he could play it like the character was in the book, which on screen just comes over as he has a big moustache and he starts off with grey hair and he goes black as the film goes on, as he appears to get younger. Otherwise, it's dreadful. But as I say, Venus and Furs is quite fascinating. I'd say it has the stock company of actors you find in a lot of Jess Franco and Harry Alan Towers productions. Klaus Kinski and Maria Rome often appeared in them. And Dennis Price, a word there on Dennis Price. He was once something of a leading matinee idol here in the UK. Played the lead in Kind Hearts and Coronets. Very handsome man then, in the 50s, but by the time we got to the late 60s, he was partly, I believe, as a result of alcohol abuse. It was overweight, balding, really gone to seed. And the only parts you could get in British low-budget films were basically butlers or police inspectors, investigating those strange goings-on with those young people who were there, beat music they listened to. The sort of British exploitation film at the time. Rock music is the root of all evil. Close to lighter Satanism, apparently. But to be fair to him, this is one of his better, Dennis Price's, the better vehicles he found himself in. But I don't know if I'm really selling the film to you, but as I say, it's just the case that Jess Franco is often I think fairly enough a maligned director. His name is a byword for poorly made continental exploitation films. I mean, there are other people, he has a cult following, there are other people who see things in his films that I don't. But this particular film, Venus and Furs, it's worth giving a chance to. Because as I say, just this once, Franco, everything seems to come together. What we ended up with is a sort of minor classic of the genre. I mean, it's very stylishly shot. It's got all the things you expect from the say that it is, attractive ladies with their clothes off, if that's what you want in one of these films, but it's not the main point. Unlike a lot of other Franco films where clearly that's part of the purpose of the film is to show some female flesh. That isn't the main purpose, the main thrust of this film. It has its shock moments, nothing too shocking. There's no particularly shocking gore sequences or anything. It's just the atmosphere the whole thing builds up. It's very intense. And I just say it's that sense, it has a good sense of time, of that end of an era in the late 60s. As I say, if you never watch any other Jesus Franco film, give Venus and Furs a chance. And remember, as the theme song says, Venus and Furs will be laughing. And with that, back to you, PQ.
Why, thank you, Doc. And we covered a wide array. Venus and Furs sounds great. I actually have. I recently acquisited through the realm of obtaining the Fu Manchu films, and I saw the first one and then was disappointed when I read up on it and found out that that's considered the best one and the other ones, as you mentioned, are made by this director, who I was going to look into anyway. So this is all, I'm telling you, the degrees of separation are closing, the synchronicities are happening time and time again. It is all tying together. It's pretty remarkable, if I do say so myself. And film, movies, oh man. From the very beginning of my movie watching, which is probably, aside from, the Beatle movies were everything. I've got to tell you, I remember being taken to both A Hard Day's Night and Help. And I remember going to see, I guess it would have been 2 years later, going to see Yellow Submarine in like late 1968, is that right? That sounds right. And I was just turned 8 years old, and of course, that Hard Day's Night I probably saw for the first time when I was 4 or 5, and Help the same, 4 or 5 years old. I saw them when the first run in the theater. My dear Aunt Diane took me to see these both. I got to see, back then there was no videotape. That's what makes it, that's what changed the whole world of exploitation film, so long as I can digress here a minute, because I'm allowed to digress here a minute. The things like seeing a naked female breast, up until there was home video and home VHS, which of course, like any other technology, VHS, the first thing that made it big was porn, and the internet was also initially fueled and funded by porn. I mean, the first video rental place in my hometown of Monticello, New York, was in the local electronics shop, and they had Beta machines and porn. Yep, that's right, porn. That's I think that's basically all you could license at the very beginning when these things first became available. I don't think they made a heck of a lot. I mean, everybody I remember had The Godfather, which I think has led to its part of its overratedness, its over-significance. You can't trash The Godfather and say it's a lousy movie or a poor film, but some people, with the sun rising and setting over Marlon Brando and Coppola and The Godfather, I don't know. It's just, I've said it before, I'll say it again, Miller's Crossing is a far better gangster movie for my 2 hours of time. And from the very beginning of my film watching, I mean, it was basically the series movies that they would show on TV. You had your Bowery Boys, I remember watching those. There was creature features, which would show horror movies, the Universal horrors, and some 50s B movies, Donovan's Brain, that sort of thing. I mean, all of it. Although when I started here, I mean, there was Brian Jude and Manny the Mailman, and there was much more of people who grew up in the same TV, or TV was much more regional back then too. I mean, the horror movies you saw in Philadelphia and New York were two completely different sets of programming syndication packages. I mean, now everybody, pretty much what is out there, you have access to. You can catch it on Netflix. We are living in an amazing future time as far as the availability of movies, that the only way to see a lot of movies was the once a year, twice a year, if that they were shown on TV. I mean, I just was raised at the Abbott and Costello movies were a sacred cycle that was shown on WPIX on Sunday mornings, every Sunday morning, for at least what it seems to me like forever. It may have only been a couple of years, but I think it was longer. It went on, and those, and they also showed the TV shows. Abbott and Costello, because of where they were at the time I grew up with, are really ingrained in my psyche. But the TV show is a favorite. We're talking about movies, and then Abbott and Costello met everybody. Abbott and Costello met Frankenstein, The Mummy, Captain Kidd. There were just so many of those Abbott and Costello movies, and looking back at them, man, Bud Abbott would just whomp the hell up, just much like the Three Stooges were violent. Abbott and Costello don't have that same reputation, but looking at their comedy from my viewpoint now, the people, he's smacking them around. There's a whole lot of violent stuff. And then there was the Bowery Boys series, as opposed to the Dead End Kids or the Little Tough Guys. I mean, there was a movie called Dead End, and a couple of sequels that Warner Brothers did with the original kids who played in a play on Broadway called Dead End. And Leo Gorcey and Hunts Hall and Billy Hallop are the best remembered today for their continued appearance into the 1950s, late 50s, in fact, Hunts Hall. He made a few more movies than Leo Gorcey did. But those, again, they were on WNEW, which is now Fox in New York. And those were on, I think, both Saturday and or Sunday mornings almost forever, movies from the Monogram system. And these are all, I wouldn't say I would recommend them as these are great. I would recommend them as these are worth seeing as entertainment, and probably you might be more amused by these than your typical average run-of-the-mill present-day Hollywood film that you would pick out from Netflix or go out and see, for that matter. I mean, I've recently, and I said this on a show recently, for my dime, Lego Batman is just, who cares? Ben Affleck, people were actually saying that, Michael Keaton was a good movie Batman. Oh, they were all just at best. And basically, once they throw that suit on and the special effects rev up, you could put Pee Wee Herman in that suit and get the same end result. And Bruce Wayne's a stiff, right? Right. Movies. God, the Godzilla movies, they used to show those on WOR, just in a cycle, although there were only a handful of those, and they would throw in the Gamera movies, a few of those, and I guess some other similar science fiction, a rubber suit monster type stuff. And then, of course, there was, a movie would come and go at the movie theater, and I got to see a lot of movies. I went fairly regularly to the movie theater to see things, but then they would show them again on things like NBC Monday night at the movies and Saturday night at the movies, world television premiere, that sort of thing. And a lot of movies I saw then, and of course what would happen there is, especially as the 60s went on and movies got into the PGs and the Rs, these movies would be at the very least truncated, and in some cases completely, severely edited so they could be shown on network television. And of course this is what gave rise to the original conception of HBO. Have you ever seen the movie Carney with, let's see, Robbie Robertson and Gary Busey? They showed that movie on HBO 40 zillion times. It's actually worth seeing if you've never seen it. Jodie Foster plays a pretty offbeat role for Jodie Foster. There's some scenes that take place at a carnival. It's goofy 80s, maybe even late 70s stuff. God, it's been a long time. And you get to see the great talent that Robbie Robertson had to break up the band for, to show like great acting talent. But that's really a whole other sad story. You ever see The Last Waltz? There's, well, we're talking about movies. I got to tie everything back in. If you ever get a chance to see, and I haven't in years, and I am looking for this one, I can find just about anything if I dig around. And this was at one time on YouTube. I saw it a couple of years ago. Zachariah, the first electric Western. I may actually have to break down and buy a used copy of that one, because that was my first going to the movies by myself to see a GP. Before PG, there was GP movies, and I think they were a little more flexible because there were some naked breasts and four-letter language that I don't think once they got everything. I mean, when I was growing up, first there were M-rated movies for mature audiences, and that was a really vague area because there was no recommended ages per se when movies were rated M. But I guess, they wrote that a parent who gave a damn movie, you're not going to that M movie. I mean, that was the whole thing again. I mean, before VHS and cable, you weren't going to see any of that. I mean, you had to go into New York City, down into the Village to one of these art places, or to Times Square to the porny joints. I mean, Andy Warhol actually showed movies in one of those 42nd Street theaters, and his movies, while I don't think they were by today's standards pornographic, back then almost anything was pornographic. Movies like I Am Curious Yellow, which was a big sensation in its day. Deep Throat was a big deal, and really compared with anything that's real hardcore pornography. And let's see. I talk about movies a lot on the Pop Culture QD, which is my ongoing show that's about to change names, as I mentioned before. So I'm trying not to do, because I'm going to be talking about I don't want to do the same thing I'm already doing, and I'm trying to be we had a lot of specifics, and yeah, we did say film festival, so I'm giving you a more broad stroke idea. If you can catch anything by the film director, the earlier Werner Herzog, Doc Sleaze was talking about the weird, cool Klaus Kinski. If you can see Fitzcarraldo or Aguirre, The Wrath of God, earlier Werner Herzog films, oh man, they are good and fine and fun. Luis Buñuel, who made a lot of semi to totally surreal films from the 1950s when he made films in Mexico into the 1970s where he had been moved over to Europe and made classics like The Discreet Charm, Bourgeoisie, Phantom of Liberty, any of those. Just about anything on his list of directed films is well worth taking a peek at if you're asking for wild and wacky recommendations. In any case, I have suddenly, my brain just said that this should be enough. This should be enough of the Overnightscape Central. We will want you to take part in next week's historic episode with the topic of history. Remember that email address, kpqr.torc@gmail.com, to participate in that. If you've got a follow-up on the movie thing, send it in, comments, what have you. We're always glad that you're listening and always glad to hear from you. Oh, man. And Jeff Zink, Frank Edward Nora, Doc Sleaze, thanks so much for making this much more than me just talking to myself. We'll do this again next week. I hope you're here for it.